Hari Om to everyone. So to begin, the topic for today is stress-free living. And we're using a practical Vedanta approach. It is unlike most talks you have heard because generally the tendency is to look for a solution to fix stress externally. Now, since Dr. Ranjan has mentioned that his familiarity with the subject is a little bit less, Vedanta, Veda means knowledge, and Anta means end or culmination of. So Vedanta is the knowledge derived from the end portions of the Vedas, actually from the Upanishads. And these systems of knowledge speak about the highest truths that the human intellect or buddhi is capable of conceiving, which at its ultimate level is telling you that thou art. You are an infinite entity, Brahman, God, Allah, whatever we call it in different names, but we are that concept. And that concept is beyond joy and sorrow. It's a state of what we call eternal infinite bliss. And that's the beginning of my talk, because a human being experiences a non-blissful state, a fluctuating state of existence all the time. And then the question we must approach then in a very scientific logic is, why is that the case? If the highest sages and men of our time are claiming that your original nature is a stress-free state, then how is it that we have identified and come into this limited stressful state is the question. And this picture on the opening slide is really just depicting that we're living on the surface of things in the red zone. And if you look at the world and the universe in more quantum phenomenal way, you'll see everything is waves and waves, right? And what we want to do is try and dissociate with the waves and ultimately identify with your true nature, which is the stress-free state. Now, let's begin by dissecting the word stress a bit, because it's such a common word and we use it every day like it's just normal parlance. So if we say to anyone, what is stress? They often start off by saying, to me, stress means this. To me, stress means that, which means there's no foundational clear definition on the word stress. See? So you go to the etymology of the word stress. Etymology means the root meaning of the word stress. And it comes from Latin, right? Actually, I haven't found a word for stress in Sanskrit, right? But it means to draw tight or to constrict, to limit something, you see? So if you look at that meaning, which is not used often in modern medicine, because modern medicine will say it's a pressure from an external source on the physical body and the physiology, which leads to a load, and your allostatic mechanism to realign the body to homeostasis is then compromised through an extreme external pressure. So that definition is somewhat right for the physical body, because we have a homeostasis. Your physiology, if you climb to a high altitude, slowly it will adapt. If you change location from a cool area to a warm area, the body will adapt. So the body will do what it needs to do physiologically, as long as we don't, by choice, put an insult onto the body that's extreme. Remember this now, it's very important, because in nature, the harmony is maintained automatically. It's what we call dharma, the law, is maintained automatically. The animals don't overeat or undereat. There's a regulation of things. But in nature, there isn't a choice in the matter. The human being is the species with the dilemma of choice, right? What we eat, how much we eat, how do we move, how do we dress, right? Now, in having that choice, what we actually have is complete freedom to adapt to any circumstance. The question is, having this powerful capability, how is it that we've still ended up in a state of stress? It's only the human species that's in a state of stress. You see, living in that red zone. Only humans suffer stress. So right at the beginning, I'm just trying to highlight a feeling in you that there's this bold proclamations by sages telling us your actual nature is a stress-free infinite fullness. Fullness in Sanskrit is Purnam. The Isavasya Upanishad starts with Purnam Ada, Purnam Idam. That is fullness, right? This is also fullness, meaning you, this individual entity, is also fullness. But what's your experience of life? Your experience is, and what is full about this body? It's decaying, it's getting wrinkles, it's overweight, it's underweight, something, losing hair. There's no permanence there. Mind is completely fluctuating all the time. Thoughts are changing. So where's the fullness? So how is Purnam Idam? How is this fullness as well? So then you have to dissect the Upanishad verse. Say, Idam is this entity, you, the body, the mind, the intellect, is not you. You see? So stress-free living is to try and dissect you out from the limited portion of you, ultimately. You see? Idam is this, the jiva. The jiva, the limited life form, is the infinite constricted into this limited understanding. That's stress at the absolute level. So I'm giving you at the highest level, but we'll dissect it further. Are you all okay?
Yeah.
Good. So the common assumptions and definitions of stress, I think, especially for those of us in the medical field today, need to be rethought of, because modern material science is good, but it only deals with the physical body. Very limited understanding, you see? And they use words like pressure, tension, strain, tightness, a stress is a mental or a strain or emotional strain. And the other big point I'll make about stress is we always say the cause of it is external. We can't have that approach with higher knowledge. The point is higher knowledge, our scriptures, Upanishads, Vedas teach us that everything is Vishvarupa. See, but how the human relates to it by his choice becomes an important factor, right? And then we want to be free from something, the word free, right? We always think we want to be free from something external, money pressure, house pressure, family pressure, political pressure, isn't it? So if you believe freedom is freedom from the external things, if you believe that, then your solutions for the problems will always be external. We will never look internally, you see? So this is the modern approach to solving stress problems, is fix something outside. G20 meeting is happening here in South Africa. The great Prime Minister Modi is here in South Africa, just up my road here, right? But what will they be discussing? Good fellows trying to find solutions, but the solutions will be all material, economic. In fact, the headline this morning in the news is investment in South Africa, 750 million euros for green energy. Okay, but is that going to lead to a stress-free state? See, if you're not free from what, will you get stress-free? So it's not freedom from external, it's freedom from something internal. And that thing is the human mind, which needs work. You see, stress, I'll come to the definition in a second, is a result of issues with the human mind. And knowledge is what can handle the mind. That's why I'm looking at a logical and practical approach at Vedanta, which is a knowledge system for humanity. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's just the law of life that is revealed to some humans, and then they teach it to us, you see. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, a great Western philosopher, scholar, poet, and writer, says, every man is a divinity in disguise, a god playing a fool. See, it's a beautiful quote that has an Upanishad quality to it. Because if you dissect it, it's exactly what I said, that humans are ultimately divine in nature, self, Purnam, right? But when you misidentify with the limited jiva, ignorance, we end up playing like a fool in the world, making choices that are against dharma and harmony. You see, in fact, it's not his words, it's the scripture itself in Bhaja Govindam and Atma Bodha. You'll find Shankaracharya calling the population mudaha, fools. Why are you wasting your time, right? Colossal fools, sometimes they say. Huh? But remember, when these masters are saying it, they're not saying it to criticize us. They are saying it with absolute love. They're saying, my dear children, you're being foolish, but you have this infinite capability in you to be stress-free. Now, why are you wasting this opportunity in human form to get to the truth? You see, every man is a divinity in disguise, a god playing a fool, right? Our foolishness has constricted you. So already I'm starting to hint that if we are going to get into a stress-free state of life, we have to start looking within ourselves. That's the work, not external. External we can make somewhat comfortable, but it will change. House will change, car will change, there's wear and tear, body will change, birth, growth, decay, disease, death, right? Mind keeps fluctuating, emotions change, isn't it? So changing things cannot give you permanent bliss. What we got to look for is that thing that we feel is permanent within us, right? So what can clear ignorance must become the question. Let me use a simple analogy. If you take a 4-foot coiled spring, right? You know what a coiled spring is, right? And you take a 4-foot spring and you suppress it down to 1 foot. What is that state of the spring in your hand? Is it a comfortable state or a stress state? Stress state, right? And there's pain on your hand. And if I release it to 2 foot, what does it become? Less painful, less pressure, a little easier. Yes? 3 foot, even better. Once it comes back to 4 foot, there's no pressure, no strain, no stress, no pain. So, mechanistically, what is the cause in that analogy of a stress-free state? It is returning the spring to its original state. You see? The original state of the spring is a stress-free state. So, if a human is feeling stressed, the corollary is, as long as we are feeling stressed, we are not in our original state. What is that original state? Tattvam asi, that thou art. You have to find it. Make sense? So all the bodies of knowledge ultimately are taking us to that truth. Now, in today's time, stress is spoken about everywhere. Even in schools, they say children are stressed. Children were born bubbly and giving and light and, in the moment and infinite energy. The minute we fertilize their ego, you the best, you must compete, you must get ahead, right? The worry and anxiety enters the mind. Worry of the past, anxiety of the future, result orientation. Am I going to get what I want? The minute that we call it mamakara and ahamkara. Ahamkara is I-ness and mindness. The ego is fertilized. The minute that comes in, right? Then the children want to compete in school. When we tell our children, you must be the best in school, you must come first. What does that do? For one individual to come out first, all the others must be last. So you create division, which goes against any philosophical system, which tries to promote harmony, interconnectivity, Vasudeva Kutumbam. You see my point? So unconsciously, as parents even, we create stress in children or incite stress by fertilizing ego unconsciously. Today in parenting, we talk values a lot, but we don't live the values. We'll put the name on the door of the child. We'll say, don't enter. See, so children have stress, corporate stress. Corporate is what? Get ahead, get the promotion at any cost, get the next higher salary. You see, that's all at the mind level where greed forms, isn't it? Desires that are uncontrolled. So this is the world we live in today, where human beings, we've become intelligent, but without real buddhi, we actually become more like sophisticated savages. And that's the stress world, right? Make sense? We're not judging, we're analyzing here, right? Out of empathy, right? We have stress earning money, right? We then got the money, then you have stress, fear of losing it, right? Then it's stored there, then some point, some expense will come. We choose to put the children in the expensive school in America. Now to spend it even is a stress. Can't part with it. Huh? You see that? In Dubai, they charge what? $50 for a glass of wine, right? So people feel I must go there to experience it. And then you have to earn to make that $50, and that's stressful. That same wine here in South Africa, I can buy for you for 50 rupees, right? You see, because we don't think anymore. Not that I drink wine or anything. South Africa is known for wine estates, Okay. So I'm just giving a perspective there. Action has become a burden, right? Swami Ramatirtha, a great sage of India, was a mathematician and scholar, says action is the insignia of life. Till the very last breath, you must keep going with your boots on. You must be Bharata, the bull of Bharata. Philosophy of Krishna conveyed to Arjuna is maximum work, minimum profit. You just work for work's sake. The action has become a burden, right? And then the world suffers stress and strain. Action ought to be the insignia of life. Chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita is the yoga of action, right? So how have we fallen from all these great truths to this state? And then what we do is we acclimatize. We say stress is nothing more than a socially acceptable form of mental disease. Have you noticed in society how people say, but it's normal that stress, it's normal. Monday comes, right? Someone doesn't feel like going to work, and you're talking to your friend, and I have to go to work. The traffic is terrible, but it's normal. Everything abnormal, we've now normalized it. Richard Carlson has said that. We're complacent. This is what's called tamas, that inertia sets in, you see, because a certain level of stress has come to feel natural, you see. Like people living in bad conditions, we call it slums or whatever, unfortunately they're there. But if you go in there and you say, what is that bad smell? People living it will say, what smell are you talking about, right? Then you take someone out of that environment into something cleaner and perhaps fresher, and then you bring them back and they say, oh, that smell. You see, similarly, we're in such a state of stress, we can't smell it anymore. We're doing everything upside down in life, you see. So this is just giving you context of where we are with stress. I'm going to get to the anatomy of stress in a second. This was just a little article on medical students, showing how they experience stress these days. And huge problems. I teach at the medical school here. And even they are taught to be result orientated. The curriculum for study is full of content. They have to just swat things off. There's no time for reflection, right? And it's result orientation, passing exams. They don't discuss any more service to humanity. You see, when people do community work, when you're giving seva, you never feel stressed. The minute you are working to earn for yourself and there's result orientation, there will be stress. That's karma yoga. Karma yoga is nothing but saying, do the same work that you're doing, but do it with an attitude of service. Not what can I get out of it. What you get out of it, you live within your means. But don't set the goal as what can I get out of it. You see that? So these are all the symptoms on the screen here. Academic pressure, burnout, emotional, they want to drop out. Very bad state of stress the human experiences. The problem we have also is that we try and treat each of these symptoms separately. Anxiety, take anxiety pill. Depression, take depression pill. Burnout, take some fertilizer, energy drink or stimulant or extra coffee. You see, it won't solve the problem. It will give a temporary solace, but it will come at a price long term. When you use all these stimulants, you're borrowing energy. You see, human being has infinite energy. The question is, how do we tap into it? See, the masters and the great sages, how much energy they had. They kept giving, giving, giving. Nothing could stop them, isn't it? You look at even relatively high humans, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi of India, so service orientated. You can never imagine them coming to us and saying, hey, I'm burnt out today. Do you have some juice for me or something like that, Or can I go to a spa for some treatment, Can you imagine Mahatma Gandhi saying that? No ways, right? They had tapped into infinite energy through selflessness, unselfishness. You see? Make sense? So we don't discuss these more mind-driven issues or metaphysical components anymore. See, the approach to stress has become very gross and materialistic. And that is needed, okay, little bit. So you're not too agitated with your pains, but it has to be paired with this kind of knowledge-based approach. And then I tried to look for something which I found in a Brazilian cardiovascular journal, where I'll show you the rest of it now. But you see here on the right side of the screen that our approach to stress is dealing with this immune endocrine autonomic nervous system, cardiovascular function, and cardiovascular health and disease. So how do we treat stress? Blood pressure control, exercise, diet, right? And then when we get into the more spiritual field, now some people are going into pranayama and breathing exercises, which is more subtle and have a better effect, right? But it's still at the pranayama, the pranayama kosha, the breath sheath, right? But there's still more to us. There's the mind, there's the intellect, the buddhi, which needs work. Okay, you all good? So this is what we call the seen component of life, that which is visible. In Sanskrit, we call that drishta, right? Drishta is that which can be seen and perceived by our five senses. So if we only go by the five senses, then you're only going to have a materialistic approach to solving the problem. The thing is, your very five senses are very limited. They don't show you the whole spectrum of reality. Fish in the depths of the ocean see different light, right? Sound spectrum is different for different species. So that tells us already that the human capability, the five senses, are very limited. So to take limited knowledge through those five senses and create solutions for something that's much deeper is actually limited knowledge, ignorance. You see? Makes sense. So adrishta is the unseen aspect of life. And actually 99.9% of cosmos and life is being driven by unseen aspects, which the Vedic systems now put a light of knowledge on, right? So they say, let's look at the rest of it. You see my point, right? So what is the mind? What are these emotions, negative and positive? How do they form? What triggers negative? What triggers positive? How can you, independent of the triggers, navigate those emotions to rise above them? You see? And when you go deeper into the adrishta, it starts coalescing into one point, which is that infinite self with a capital S, right? Brahman, Atman, God, Yahweh, Allah, whatever we call it. End of the day, it's the concept to be derived logically. That realization takes you ultimately to stress-free state. So what we're also pointing out then is that this part of life, right, the adrishta, has been already defined in ancient systems in a very scientific and logical fashion. And it is a missing component of knowledge systems today. This is my key bugbear as an intellectual, right? And see, human civilization, it's a discussion I was having yesterday with one of my classes, is not defined by material progress and technology. It's defined by spiritual edification. What is spiritual edification? Is using knowledge to address the adrishta part of the human composition, right? Chastening emotions, right? Regulating the body and developing a solid buddhi or intellect to stabilize life so much that once life is stabilized and you develop chitta shuddhi, which is mind is calm, then you can start contemplating moksha and liberation. Today, the person in the marketplace who is affected by the most minor thing is doing some spiritual rituals. Mind is agitated. I had a patient the other day who said, Dr. Ruda, I'm ready for moksha, liberation. So I went to measure her blood pressure and I said, your blood pressure is very high, She said, it's high. Oh my God, how can that be? Oh my, I have to do something about it. And then I looked at her and I said, Notice your agitation at the mere blood pressure being high. This is not a person that's ready for moksha yet. You see, she still wants to now take extra turmeric and extra whatever, garlic and ginger and whatever now. So body attached. You see my point? Physical is physical. Spiritual is beyond that. So you got to have that mind stabilized before you can contemplate moksha, right? So we'll treat with pills and supplements, right? And also see the limited approach, the drishta approach, when you connect it to your senses. What do we do for stress? Nah? See, when you're stressed, the only way to de-stress is forget your limited jiva. So what you do, you go to a movie. Yeah. In the movie, you forget yourself, right? Or you become an experience hunter. You go for social, nice dinner with a glass of wine. You forget yourself because there also you gossip and you start talking about everyone else, isn't it? Right. Or you start holiday. Travel and tourism is a big thing now, right? They call a human being who is stressed an experience hunter. I must go see the next ocean, the next beach, climb the next mountain, go eat some ice cream gelato in Italy. When you're doing all of that, you're distracting yourself from that limited ego self. You see? So when you forget that limited ego self, you feel temporarily stress free. But if you intellectual, you realize that this whole life we're creating is an addiction life, is addiction to many things to forget yourself. A variety world of consumption, you see. So what is this real human then that can become stress-free? How do you live like that? You see? So this Chinese philosopher says, men honor what lies within the sphere of their knowledge, you see, but do not realize how dependent they are on what lies beyond it. The sphere of knowledge is what? Sphere of knowledge is our tech bros today, developing all the technology for AI. And sphere of knowledge is what we honor, right? And why? Because if you invest in the tech companies, then your shares are going to go up, isn't it? And you'll make money. And everyone's saying the next best wave. But what is the nature? The sannyas, the thinker, the acharyas come and say, hey, what goes up must come down. And if you have not prepared, if you depend on it being up all the time, when it comes down, who's going to be stressed? Nature of the world is duality, yin and yang. What goes up must come down. Today's joy is tomorrow's sorrow. Today's victor is tomorrow's victim. This is the facts of life, you see. So not considering these facts of life, the human is in a stress state. Because what we do is we create a mental picture how everything must be perfect for me. That mental picture, this wonderful God-given universe, does not cater to your picture. Right? You must remember the universal laws are impersonal. They are not designed just for you. That is ego living. Right? So there's multitudinous laws of nature that govern this world, and these laws function infallibly. They seem to bow to some obeisance to some governor. Now the human question must be, what is that? Let me seek that. And if I live a life, do your duty, work, have family, but pursue that. Suddenly that mind starts stilling. That's the stress-free living approach, ultimately. Right? So one point I want to make here also is in the concept of dharma. Right? And that takes us to this anatomy of stress. Sorry. So anatomy of stress, before I go into it, we all have different definitions for dharma, and they are. You go look it up, 25, 30, maybe even 40 different, depending on context. But one way of looking at dharma is looking at it as the laws that maintain harmony in the universe. You see, independent of humans, if you look at nature and the cosmos, right? Is there harmony or chaos? The solar system, the proportion of veggies to herbivore to carnivore is a well-balanced system, isn't it? Right? And there seems to be some law maintaining those proportions. Now, if those laws are maintaining the harmony in the creation, right, then the law itself must have come prior to creation. You see? That's a mathematical corollary. You can extrapolate that. Now, the human mind and the human intellect did not create those laws. You can only try and conceive of them and study them. So dharma is the laws that maintain harmony. So when a human makes choices, that was my question at the beginning, the dilemma of choice. We tend to choose based on our likes and dislikes. I like this, I'm going to do it. I don't like this, I'll avoid it. What the sages are coming and saying is study the laws of dharma and use dharma to make the choice. Because if you use the very laws of creation to make choices, then you maintain harmony within yourself and with your environment. Does that make sense? Yeah. And we haven't been doing that. We're not studying dharma. We're not studying it from school. All we're saying is life is make money, get ahead, and promote yourself. You see my point? There's a big difference in the education systems, which is why the concept of a Gurukula needs to be reinvestigated, in my opinion, and considered in our schooling systems and universities again. We need this because the world is in state of ignorance. When entire civilization is in ignorance, we call that what? Kali Yuga. Kali simply means darkness of ignorance, right? Not demons. Demonic living is no knowledge. You see, that's what it means. So, and you can see that happening in the world. The militancy, the terrorism, the fanaticism that's going on. You see, it's a manifestation of lack of knowledge of Dharma. See, humans not using their intellect, right? So to get to the source of stress, the inner personality of the human needs to be examined. Swami Partha who's my teacher, says stress is a mental agitation created by unfulfilled desires. Beautiful definition, because then it means we have to go inward and then we have to understand where desires occur in the mind. Then we have to understand the nature of the mind. Then you have to understand what is it? What can regulate the mind? And there's this forgotten equipment of the human called the intellect or buddhi, right? Buddhi is the meaning of intellect, to awaken. If the intellect is awakened, it can manage the mind. If the mind is managed, the desires drop. If the desires drop, there cannot be modification of desire. And modification of desire is nothing but stress. I'll show it to you now. You see? So if you get the right definition, then the solutions can come up automatically that we investigate at the root cause. You see? And then you start getting interested in knowledge, not just taking pills and supplements. You got it? So we said stress-free living. So what is life? Human beings' job is to live. We have these very emaciated definitions of things, you know, right? So we say life is a series of experiences, anubhava dara. You see that, right? Now you take one unit of experience. What is it? It's you, the subject, meets the world, which is the object. Okay. In my case, I'm the subject and this screen and all of you are the object I'm experiencing. Right. Now, if you take the world, which is the object, there's three aspects to it: nature, money, and people. Right. Now, those have been improved through science, economics, and policy. Maybe some would argue the policies we're getting wrong today because the politics is a mess around the world, right? But the point is, right, we have technology and push button comforts. So in the equation, if life experience, what we want is positive life experience, stress-free. But what we're experiencing is negative. So in the equation, if the result is negative, but the objective world is being improved, positive, right? Then in the sum, what is negative in the state? The subject, you, the individual, is in a negative state, which means we are not attending to the individual. This is the problem. I made this point in various ways so far. So then we go to the subject. So life experience is subject meets object. Object is improved, push button comfort. But we need to attend to the subject to improve life. And that's where Vedanta comes with all the knowledge to say, how do we do that? Does it make sense? So now you take the subject. The subject, the BMI abbreviation there stands for You, the individual human, is made up of a physical body, sharira. The physical body, however, is inanimate. It's earth. It goes back to soil. Actually, it's made of manure of previous organisms, right? Whatever food you ate makes the physical body. Make sense? Right. So, yeah, I don't know if you can hear the helicopter. That's probably one of the G20 guys, right? Flying over. Anyway, the point is the sharir, body. Body is nothing but what you've eaten, and it will return back to soil, inanimate. But it is worn by a vesture called the mind, right? Manas. Now, the mind is non-local. It's not the brain. Modern Western science says the seat of the mind is the brain. No. Mind comes prior to brain, and I don't have time now, but you got to look at the work of Wilder Penfield, the neurosurgeon, who was a material scientist who converts to idealism. After all his research on the brain and work on epilepsy, he says, no matter what I do to the brain, I can never stimulate, right, the will to do something. I can never stimulate abstract thoughts, poetry, realizations. I can stimulate movement and secretions, but I can't stimulate the other. So that means mind comes prior, you see, right? Now, mind is the seat of emotions, likes and dislikes. I'll come to it now, right? So the body receives the world through the five senses. We call them triggers when we stress, right? That sensory data falls onto the mind, the sense centers in the mind. And your mind is made up of your past likes and dislikes, which have been acquired through upbringing and society, but also your inherent vasanas that you were born with. Your swadharma is unique to you. Swa means inherent, dharma means nature. So every human being has an individual nature you were born with. That individual nature are the grooves, the lines along which you were supposed to live and exhaust your desires. You see that? Now, the mind is full of all these mental patterns of likes and dislikes, etc., right? So any receipt into the mind is going to cause like a chemical reaction. So if a guy likes cricket and he sees someone walking with free tickets for the OC, what do they call it? ODI, One Day International. So if he likes that, the reaction in the mind is, I want it. The response will be, take the tickets. Same tickets, stimulus. If someone doesn't like cricket and likes Formula One, his mind's reaction must be no response to taking the tickets. You see? Okay. So human beings experience three transactions: receipt, reaction, response. The thing is, if the buddhi or the intellect is not regulating the mind's reaction, then what we call that RRR is impulsive living. And impulsive living, instant gratification, is always going to lead to stress. You must remember, mind wants instant. The nature of the mind, we call it vanara, monkey mind, isn't it? Right? So monkey mind is just grab everything, go, go, go. And it's not capable of rational thinking, you see. So mind-driven living is impulsive living. It's instant gratification living. It's called the path of pleasure, prayers, not shreyas, right? That will always lead to stress. But when intellect is supervising and well developed, you can have the reaction in the mind, but intellect will come and say, is that so? Let me first examine this. Diabetic likes sugar. He picks up, sees the chocolate. I like it, I'll have it. That's mind, impulsive. It's going to lead to stress. HbA1c, sugar will be high. Amputation risk is high. You see, that will lead to stress. But if intellect comes in, it says, hey, wait a minute. The higher sugar is going to lead to higher risk of amputation. Maybe not such a good idea. There's a rationalization there, right? And then also link it to higher values. If I take the sugar, my health goes bad. Does it maintain harmony within my body? No, dharma is not maintained. Does it maintain harmony within the community and family? I'm going to become a burden. Everybody has to take care of me. Higher values come in, you see. So intellect guiding the mind, right? Mind is not suppressed then. It redirects it. Actually, it will fall away, you see. And then the intellect guides the response. Don't pick up the chocolate. You see that? That is higher living, ultimately. I'm putting it very simply. We can discuss these things for days and days. But I just wanted those of you attending to get a template. and just inspire you towards a knowledge-based approach to life. And then when that intellect finally stabilizes the mind completely, right? Then we can use the subtle intellect. See, the gross intellect manages the mind and the navigation of the material world, the duality, tall and short, joy and sorrow, yin and yang, basically, right? But once that is stabilized, that person moves in the ashramas of life, from householder to grihastha. He starts contemplating. You see, eventually they go to sannyas. So sannyas is where the subtle intellect is so available. They're only contemplating the infinite. And the basic living is all sorted. So sannyas is not going to the mountains and running away from stress. It's an inner state of constant contemplation of the infinite, where the mind's reactions are no longer disturbing you in that mechanism I showed you. Okay. So I'm reacting to the faces on the screen here, but I hope the rest are also with me so far. It helps to have faces, right? And this is the mind, you see. It wreaks havoc, right? It's full of likes and dislikes. But what's the problem with having likes and dislikes? The universe is not going to cater to your likes and dislikes. And that's the definition of stress. My desire is not fulfilled. So stress, mental agitation. Stress is mental agitations due to unfulfilled desires. Stress is worry of the past, anxiety of the future. You see, that movement. And then if you have a desire for something, right, it can be modified. I desire money, I get more money. When you got the more money, greed can develop. It's a modification of desire. Or if someone has more than what you've achieved, right, then you develop envy, isn't it? Or if you got enough and you fear losing it, you live in fear and anxiety. You see? So all these modifications of desire in one of the faiths, in the Christian faith, is called 7 deadly sins. You see, in Vedanta, we just take it more scientifically and we say, these are desires, and when they're modified, this is what it becomes. Make sense? So desire is in the mind. And some scriptures and philosophies say the mind and desires are the devil between us and the infinite, between stress-free living. So the devil is not a physical entity. It's a personification of the mind's desires that are modified. We call it Asura and Mara in Hinduism and Buddhism, Shaitan in Islam, and Satan in Christianity. See, same story coming out in different ways everywhere. Beautiful and very interesting when you look at it from a knowledge perspective, right? And we don't know what we actually want when you follow the mind. See, actually what you want is eternal happiness. But what you're doing is trying to find it in temporary things. What you want is self-realization, original state. You don't know that's what you want, but it's actually what you want. That's the paradox of life. You see? When you get the next car, you neutralize. 3 months later, car doesn't give joy. But you thought when I get the car, I'll be permanently happy. See, that idea of permanence comes up. Makes sense? So you know not what you want. And when you don't know what you want, your two motivations become what? Acquire everything. And once you've acquired it, you want to enjoy it. But enjoyment never lasts. The law of neutralization is you can eat that beautiful, moist chocolate cake today, and then your mind will say, if I eat it every day, I'll be happy. Eat it next day, maybe a little good reaction. Third day, not so much. Fourth day, nothing. Fifth day, you're irritated with it. It's like poison to you. The Bhagavad Gita says, what is nectar to you now becomes poison later. What is poison now, what is difficult to do will be your nectar later. See, beautiful those verses are to dissect and apply in life. The smart guy goes for the path of the good, Shreyas. He does the difficult things from now. Later, what does he want? You just get the liberation, moksha, stress-free state. But you see, when you do the difficult things initially, you exercise regularly, you eat right, after a while it becomes such a joy. Wake up at 4 in the morning to study scripture and philosophy during Brahma Muhurta, right? Difficult. But after a year or two, you'll see it's the best part of your life and you are in this bliss state. Your body is good, your mind is stable, isn't it? But if you go for that instant gratification now, right, what happens? By the time you're 55, 60, you're coming off the plane, you're waiting for a wheelchair. Notice that in the international airports, Generally, I see a lot of Indians waiting for the wheelchair, right? Okay. We don't exercise too much. And then if you want to get to the stress-free state, we got to talk about this concept of ego as well, right? So I've been through the likes and dislikes, attachment, enjoyment, right? Get thee behind me, Satan. I'll have none by thy hand. You must have that approach to the mind. You see, you lead the mind must not lead you. And then ego. I'll just touch on this because otherwise we'll run out of time. To identify ego in ourselves, we must be very clear. It's a very tricky thing. In nature, dharma and harmony is maintained through lack of ego. Nothing in nature has an ego. So we must always be careful how we relate to the world in terms of our ego. It's that arrogation of I and me, ahamkara and mamakara. I am here and I relate to everything, so everything is mine. We must be careful of that thought. Nothing is ours. Examine. Even our children, they're born to us, but are they ours really? What made the children? What made the egg? What made the sperm? What produced at 9 months? There's a process you are witness to, and nothing you did made that child. You see? But the minute it's born, actually, it feels like a stranger. But 5 minutes later, someone says, oh, your baby is cute. Yes, it's mine. That mindness, that ego comes. And the minute the mindness comes, you're going to be stressed because you own it, you possess it, and you want it to be like you. And it's never going to be like you because it has its own vasanas. And there's the stress of life. 30, 40 years will go. Next Janma also, it won't change. You see my point, right? So you must be careful of the I-ness or minus. You see, even you talk, like today, it's a nice day outside, sunny sky. Last night was raining heavily. So if you meet anyone outside and say, beautiful sunny day, and the next person will say, I beg to differ, ego, that I, you see. And you talk in a meeting today with doctors and stuff, everybody's trying to put their own opinion, not listening to the core of the issue. You can't solve problems. Umar Khayyam says they talk about and about in meetings and they go out the same door they came in, right? That's what happens. And we personalize everything, right? So personalization means you can discuss a topic, but at the end of the day, the person you're talking to will say, I didn't do it. It's not about me. Why are you saying that about me? Say, hey, listen, I'm not talking about you. We're saying, is this going to work for the purpose? We like to personalize everything in that sense of possessiveness, right? So these are just little lines you must remember in life. If you're starting to feel that doership, I am supreme, I only exist, you got to look at it. You must know it's going to end up with stress eventually, right? The work of life is reduce the ego or the I-ness. So just to end off with, then we'll go to remedy. So at a practical level, right, what must we do? Assess the world using your buddhi or intellect. Remember that the mind is the source of stress and the intellect alone can control the vagaries of the mind. So what can you do at a practical level? Assess the world. Have the right expectation. A lion is going to be a lion, a sheep is going to be a sheep. Now, animals have collective vasanas, group, herd instinct. So you see one lion, you know, keep my distance. There's not going to ever be a lion that's not ferocious and not a carnivore. You're not going to a lion that's going to say, no, I'm a herbivore or vegan. You can assess correctly, right? Okay. So you know how to relate. You'll stay in your car and you look at it from far and you will not be stressed. If you go pet it through wrong assessment, you'll be stressed. Now, similarly with human beings, remember, no two humans are alike. Human beings have individual vasanas, your own kith and kin, your genetics. One will be a snake human, one will be a hyena human, one be a cute bunny rabbit human. You see? Now you got to relate accordingly. If you're not a snake charmer, then keep your distance from that snake one, you know, and understand it has a role in life too. And you won't be stressed. You see, but you want the snake human to act like a bunny rabbit human, and then so you're going to be stressed. Why? Because it's my family. They shouldn't be like that, isn't it? What we don't know what the tendencies are. Vasanas are non-genetic. Remember that. So have correct expectation and relate accordingly. You know, make sense? Yeah. And do that with everything: other creatures, environment, your country. You know, community, weather. Right. A lot of corruption in our politics. Now we're saying, why are they corrupt? Iniquity there shall be in the world. Woe unto you if you are the cause of it. Right. They're going to be corrupt. If they are takers, then you must be a giver. Just keep giving till they exhaust themselves. One day it will change. Okay. Right. And then spiritual training. I'll quickly go through this because we're reaching an hour now. The important thing is, like I said, the adrishta component is to go into ourselves and remember that every human has a different makeup. Your nature of mind and intellect varies in people. If you are more mind driven, which is majority of human, emotional people, then you need to chasten emotions. That's where we need a devotional approach, majority to life. We call it bhakti yoga. And that needs to be incorporated in education and community and systems. The human that's more intellectual will do more intellectual stuff, study. And that's to subtleize your thoughts towards the higher. If you're a combination of mind and intellect, you're a Raja Yogi, more actionable. The people that work for community, country, develop corporations, but it must be with a higher ideal in mind, right? So this is another problem. All the youngsters get into university, they see what is the trend. Oh, finance is the thing to make money, so they all go do BCom finance. You don't individualize according to the nature, you see. And that's where the friction comes within them as well. They become very stressed later because their inherent desires are not fulfilled. They're agitated. Okay. I realize I'm talking a lot. So when it comes to human action, adrishta, you must remember the things you do in life are dictated by your original vasanas. So it would be helpful to know yourself first. Now, vasanas are difficult to comprehend. Vasana means fragrance, your unique nature, right? Calm temperament. Temperament is more gunas. But the point is, vasana is the grooves you've laid from past actions. You see, certain children just have an inclination to cars, certain to knowledge, certain to art, certain to nature. Where did those inclinations come from? We say from past karmic cycles. So it would be helpful to know from a young age what is your vasana pattern that expresses as your swadharma. And swadharma is your own nature. Are you a swordsman or are you a farmer? You see, and once you know your swadharma, then you will be living dharmically. Because if you live within your lane, you are satisfied with life, your desires are fulfilled, there's no mental agitation, there's no temptations. There's no temptations, you can't get sick physically. You see, right? But if you're living against your swadharma, paradharma, which is alien to your nature, you see, that's a dissatisfied human full of stress and mental agitations. And that's where all the temptations come. More holidays, more food, more activities, more. You can't suppress those things. But what I'm saying is those ways of life will never lead to stress-free living. That's the point. You okay? So always the acquisition of wealth and enjoyment, artha kama, in Vedanta, in the Vedas, is sandwiched between dharma and moksha. You see, the point I started with is we are in an adharmic state because we're choosing according to likes and dislikes, where we ought to be using dharma, the sanctioned pursuit of wealth, for communal good. It ought to be the order of the day. The sanctioned pursuit of enjoyment. If you look at the ancient Gandharva Vedas, the classical music and the art and the culture, beautiful enjoyment that takes you to the higher. Today, the music is only singing about the body parts. You see the difference? And short-lived little pieces, pop music with music videos and Bollywood songs to keep all the senses attracted. But you get Carnatic music from ancient times, right? 4 or 5 hours, the guy will just sit there with a simple stage and just take you to the highest level. You see the difference? So instant versus path of the good. You bear through that music, but it will take you to the highest level and frequency. So that needs to be incorporated in culture as well. So I'm just making that point here. Ultimately, when the individual is distraught by cares and pleasantry or tortured by violence of his wishes and desires, likes and dislikes, the genius in him is enchained and cannot move. It is only when the cares and desires are silent that the air is free enough for genius to live in it. It is then that the bonds of matter are cast aside and pure spirit, Atman within you, the knowing subject remains the true subject ultimately. And this is by Arthur Schopenhauer, who was a German philosopher who studied the Vedas as well. Now, I do realize this is taking a bit longer, but I'm just going to touch on this. The Kosha wheel, you've all probably seen in these talks that Dr. Ranjan hosts on Spiritual and Holistic Doctors group. And look at the approach from what I've said now, that instead of just focusing on the vital air sheath, the mental sheath, pranayama kosha, manomaya, annamaya kosha, the mental sheath can only be regulated permanently through development of buddhi or intellect, right? So we got to get the vijnanamaya kosha more active through consistent study and incorporation of intellectual truths within our living space. Integration is necessary. They cannot be separate. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, someone was saying something there, but we'll be ending soon. And the evidence for this comes from various texts that we've been studying. The Bhaja Govindam, Adi Shankaracharya says, what develops the intellect is study of scripture. Bhagavad Gita, Shastra, Nama. Should be chanted. Chanted means study, right? Meditate upon that. The mind associated with the good, right? And wealth given as sacrifice to the needy. Live a life of giving, not taking. Chasten the emotions to right input and receipt. And study scripture which develops the intellect, makes you think of the higher. Okay. In another verse, he says, regulate pranas or life's activities. So eat right, sleep right, withdraw the sense activities, don't overindulge, and keep discerning between the eternal and the ephemeral. Ephemeral is changing. What is that eternal? What is that original state which doesn't change? And then use all the practices that have been discussed on this group, chanting, sound therapies, all of that stabilizes the outer. But the real work starts when you work on the inner. And do this gently, with care, with great care, no obsession. Take your time. And that actually gives you the full spiritual path of life, a path of service-driven action, devotion in life, and knowledge, which is the missing component that I'm trying to emphasize these days. As you develop that, the desires reduce, the mind becomes withdrawn and stable. A withdrawn mind can concentrate on life. You see, concentration is focus, single pointed. I'm here, and the mind doesn't wander. Later, that mind will be capable of true meditation. It becomes like, while we can practice meditation here, this state here is like an open-eyed meditation in a permanent state of contemplating the infinite. When the final state drops, you reach samadhi or self-realization, the original state, which is stress-free. Okay, so stress-free living, my friends, is getting to original state. I'm giving you a sort of a foundational diagrammatic approach here, which needs to be filled in with a lot of detail over time, and perhaps we can discuss in the future. But I hope it helps you in understanding that you can live in the world treating alike pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat. And then you get ready for battle, O Arjuna. And that way we do not incur sin, no stress. So that's from the Bhagavad Gita. With that, I conclude my talk.